afternoon session of our conversations today. And of course, we are pretty much happy to again convene here to share into the lived realities and, of course, how we can build resilience of the queer community around mental health issues. This afternoon, we are joined by an amazing panel, and again, with a very, very great and experienced panelists, plus a very awesome moderator who's going to take us through the afternoon session. And I'll just call you on board from wherever, from any part of the world you're joining us from, to follow through, engage the panelists as much as you can, and just to again confirm that this conversation is brought to you courtesy of the kind support of Forum Civ Eastern and Southern Africa, and it has been convened by Talanta Africa. Without further ado, I just want to take it over to our amazing moderator, Vera Karibu.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our virtual room this 31st day of March 2022. And just like Steve introduced, today we are going to look into queer perspectives. And our topic for today is manifestation and building resilience around mental health. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves and speak a bit about your experience in either working or experiencing mental health in the queer community in your different geographical locations. Over to you, Fahe. We start with Fahe.
A very good afternoon to us all. My name is Fahe Kirubo. I'm a sexual reproductive health and rights youth advocate and a gender issues activist. My work of advocacy is based in Nairobi, Kenya, and I'm happy to be here to share in perspectives, weigh in, experiences, and listen to others' experiences as well as we learn together. Back to you. Thank you.
We have Uche. If you can hear us, Uche. Uche, can you hear me? Please introduce yourself.
Hello? Yes, I can hear you. So I am Daniel Chechuku, and I'm a project coordinator for Interfaith Diversity Network of West Africa. We are faith-based, religious organization, and we work within some social justice, and we basically work for the LGBTIQ community. Thank you.
Christovia.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Christovia Ogada. I am based in Kakamega, Kenya. I work with the LBQ women in Kakamega County. Basically, we advocate for the rights of LGBTQ persons. Our major is mental health. Yes.
Kashindi, all the way from DRC.
Hello for everyone. Hello. I'm Kashin Shabani from Democratic Republic of Congo, the Secretary Executive of Savia LGBTQ Group. We are working on mental issue, especially on LGBTQ, and then on pregnant women on rural areas. I'm very happy to be with you in that forum. Thank you very much.
All right. We'll start by looking at what mental health looks like for you. Fahe, when you hear mental health and sexual reproductive health, what does it mean for you?
Thank you. Mental health for me is just more like includes our emotional. There's a lot of background noise. I'm not sure if I'm audible from the other side. All right, mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, we feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress related to others and making health choices. So, in the aspect of reproductive health, sexual reproductive health and rights, mental health as well is in the aspect of health choices and being able actually to identify that you're going through a crisis mentally and you need, identifying that you need help and knowing that the kind of help that you need and actually going to seek it, going further and seeking for that kind of help. Yeah, back to you.
I am very much aware that DRC continues to experience armed and intercommunal conflicts, disasters, and Ebola, and recurrent cholera and malaria. How does mental health sound to you when we talk about mental health?
Hello. The question is for DRC. Hello.
The question is for DRC.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. When we're talking about malaria and we're talking about other issues related on health issues, we probably see they affect more people, more women especially. And then we see there's areas that are not progress due to a lack of fund from the government. And then there's a limit resource for NGO to do in those areas. That's what I say about DRC. So we have lack of funds and we lack of capacities on those areas. Thank you very much.
Yes, Kashindi, I am aware that in DRC, actually, even just laws, like DRC ratified international legal instrument concerning the rights and protection of people who are mentally ill, but there is no law yet in DRC that is defining the right and protection of people with mental illnesses, like for instance, in voluntary or involuntary admission into psychiatric hospitals. And just the mere fact that even the psychiatric hospitals are more decentralized in one place, and there are two, or there are not so many, and even the facilities are not yet well enough. I don't know how this relates to the queer community. Is there something that maybe your organization or other partners are doing to remedy this situation in DRC?
Yeah, that is a clear. That issue is clear. So other partners who are working with queer communities, we're just relying on what I said before on NGO, international NGO, like Médecins Sans Frontières, Care International, and then we're relying on other foundations which provide us for little resources on dealing with that issues on mental issues. As you may know, the DRC Congo has trouble since 60 years now. So we just do what we can on our level. That's I can add on that issue.
Christovia, would you want to expound on how mental health looks like for the rural LBQ trans persons in Kakamega?
Yes. When we talk about mental health for LBQ persons, then it brings me back to the fact that the LBQ community doesn't really have a well-structured programs that intervenes in terms of mental health. Then again, the fact COVID-19 actually accelerated it. It blew up the fact that LBQ persons and transgender persons actually needed mental health kind of programming. I envy the GBMSM and the trans persons because they have very well organized structures when it comes to mental health. of which, when we come to the LBQ persons, we do not have interventions for mental health issues. And talking from an experience, I would say that we've done amazing work when it comes to policy and advocacy. But we as a movement have neglected the mental health perspective of us as individuals who are struggling with stigma, who are struggling with discrimination, who are struggling with homophobia. Yes.
Uche, I know that Ghana, you have the act, the 2012 Mental Health Act, that was actually aimed to create a new system of mental health care in Ghana. Though I know it has hindrances like limited dissemination, like the delays in parliamentary process for passing the legislative instrument, and even poor access to to patients, in unorthodox mental facilities. How is it like for the queer people in Ghana? And now that you actually mentioned that in Ghana right now, the situation is so dire for the LGBTIQ community. How is the situation right now in terms of mental health? How does it look like? Uche, you are on mute. We can't hear you. Okay, as we wait for Uche to come back to us with that. Oh, a lot has been talked about mental health. Oh, Uche, you're back. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes, I can.
Yes. So as you were saying, there will be, sorry, there may be things placed, policies placed for mental health when it comes to Ghana, but the LGBT community, the queer community in Ghana has bigger issue when it comes to mental health. Based on our research we have done in IGNOA in Ghana, there is high level of depression among the queer community in Ghana, and it's so high, and it's very hard to address it because most of it, the main cause of it is religion. So there is religious fundamentalism, which is a very big, big problem when it comes to the mental health of the LGBT persons. And we don't have a governmental structure or a social structure where even queer people can go and say that we are struggling with these issues for them to, for because for mental health, identifying it alone is very, very important. But here is the case: we don't have the channels there. We don't have a social liberal system where everybody, no matter who you are, can go and say that I'm going through this and this and that, and so I need help. So yes, the government has talked about it. There are things in place for people to go. Even with that, it's not easy to come by. It's not something that people can just walk into a public office and get it the next day. So mental health issue in Ghana here is a very, very, and from last year, it escalated from the arrest of the whole 21 to the closure of the LGBT rights office. Then the bill came. So it has escalated the whole of 2021. The community didn't want to step out. Some people don't even want to come to meetings anymore because it's on news, like public transport and radio is saying it over and over. People get scared. They don't even want to come out at all. So when you talk about mental health and talk about Ghana and the queer community, there is a whole lot that needs to be done.
Thank you, Uche. I
Thank you.
know some of the main groups of mental disorders because a lot of people do not actually understand, like what even like mood disorders like bipolar or depression, anxiety disorders, personality disorders, psychotic disorders like schizophrenia, like eating disorders and post-traumatic stress disorders. And some disorders even come because of substance abuse. And I think research has also shown that people in the
Yes.
LGBTIQ community experience mental health issues at a higher rate, with 61% having depression, you know, and also 40% of transgender individuals. Oh, we are sorry. Let's recognize all the trans people in the house, like everyone online who's
It's your day
trans. Happy
today.
Trans Visibility
Hello.
Day. Yes, so as I was saying, additionally, 40% of transgender individuals have attempted suicide in their lives. And this could be like nearly 9 or 10 times overall in Africa. So I think one of the main attributes of even why we are not, because Christovia talked about we, the people, not being able to take up our, like recognize our own mental space, is something that is at the core, and this is stigma, and ignorance and discrimination. Fahe, how does stigma work, especially for, in relation to reproductive health rights and mental health? I know it has a very large relationship in this.
Thank you. Now, before I give the relationship, let's maybe define what stigma looks like, what stigma is. Now, stigma is the negative and often unfair social attitudes attached to a person or a group, often placing shame to them for a perceived deficiency or difference of their being. For example, the LGBTIQ persons always are stigmatized for who they are, based on the societal attitudes and, the beliefs, the perceptions that they have, and the religious beliefs that they base their social attributes to. They contribute a lot to stigma. Now, when we look at mental stigma, this refers to the societal, disapproval, or when society places shame on people who live with a mental illness or seek help for emotional, distress such as anxiety, depression, bipolar disorders, or PTSD. The pressure of mental health stigma can come from family, it can come from friends, co-workers, a society, or maybe just the community at large. Groups can also, politicize stigma. Now, when we look at stigma and access to services, for instance, and I'll speak in the aspect of the LGBTQ community, you find that most people cannot access SRH services because of this stigma in itself. You find that, for instance, healthcare providers do not understand issues related to the LGBTQ community. So clearly, they're not in a capacity, to serve the LGBTQ community and give them the services. Or maybe if they're able to give services, you find that these services are going to re-traumatize the LGBTQ community further. So you find that in the event that they're going to seek services, you find that the point of receiving services is a place that is really re-traumatizing them, which is a problem as well, which is also goes back down to mental health issues. So you find that even access to services, for instance, commodities is an example. Most of the time we talk about condoms in the aspect of the heteronormative angle. Most of the time we are not addressing commodities and services and SRHR information in the aspect of the LGBTQ community. You find that most of the time there's information, yes. There could be services, yes, but what is prevention without commodities? And what is prevention without commodities that are really speaking to the LGBTQ community? So you find that even services, even commodities themselves, are things that are really giving the LGBTQ community mental health issues, in that regard. So for me, I think one thing I'll really recommend is the understanding of issues, especially with the healthcare providers for them to understand the issues of the LGBTQ community and give them services that are specific to their needs. Yeah, back to you.
Thank you, Fahe. Anyone who has something to add on to that? Otherwise, I would actually just ask Uche. Uche, can you hear me? What is your suggestion? Like your best suggestion
Yeah, I
for
can hear you. The question again.
Yeah. What is your best suggestion for destigmatizing mental illness amongst the LGBTIQ community? Because I know it is very rife. Normally, especially, we'll always say that we want to kind of cut off people who are maybe having mental situations for reasons as not understanding what it actually means and what it is about them. We are going to label, most of the times we label them as controversial or disturbing or a nuisance, and people just forget about you like that, not taking into consideration that you may be going through a mental health, say, like period or something. Yeah.
Okay, so I think for us to destigmatize mental health in the LGBT community, we have to kill stigma itself. So there shouldn't be, as you're saying, there shouldn't be a cutoff. If you think somebody is going through mental health, or you think somebody is going through a high level of anxiety or depression or something. Now, we sometimes ourselves pick and choose who and what to relate with. These things are not supposed to be. Remember, we are talking about tolerance, we are talking about acceptance, we are talking about embracing each other, we are talking about love in a whole. So, in the community, we have come to realize that mental health is a phase along humanity. We go with it. You wouldn't know what is happening tomorrow. And so yes, so we should kill stigma by not stigmatizing the very people that have been able to even out their problems to us. Say he's too controversial, he's always confused, I don't want him around me. And this is we are creating more gaps in the community, which is not good for us. As it stands now, we need everybody on the same table. We should all come to round table and make decisions out of it. So I think focusing on how we are going to kill stigma itself when it comes to mental health and the lifestyle of LGBT persons, it will really help us when it comes to approaching and targeting mental health issues, because that will make it more easier for people to believe in the next person, or for people to believe that okay, this person is ready to, if not for anything, listen and understand me. And so I would want to talk to them. And I think the next thing too should be there has to be technical support for the community. So if it's going to be um, development, as in developing the capacity of the people who can or who have gone to school or who have had trainings of can be who can counsel other people. So we empower these people. We better their knowledge so that they can help other persons in the community. So as I was talking about this with someone, and then I was like, we need counselors for the community. We need people that are just going to be there for the community. But here is the case: these people are supposed to be help either way, administrational or funding or technical support or anyhow. So this is something that I think the whole of Africa should start talking about now. How we are going to counterattack the heat that the mental health is bringing to the community, because it's really a very big issue, and it's, for me, it's scary because seeing everybody around you go like, I want to leave Africa, I want to go out of Ghana. Everybody is restless, and it's so scary. Sometimes you take your phone in the mornings and you can't reply some people's text because we're all human beings. You wake up and you're broken one way or the other, and 4 or 5 people are looking up to you at the same time, and it's so hard. It's so hard. So I think we need to accept ourselves really for who we really are. And there is so much differences in the community. I don't really embrace that. And so we need to accept everyone, no matter how health condition or social status or anything. And then we try to grow each other, because if we are going to talk about mental health all the time, and then talk about the things we can do, put in place to help, and then the people's mindset have not changed, I don't think we are doing enough. So I think stigma, acceptance, and all these things, let's look at love. I think that one too will help. Let's look at love. And you just need to know that no matter what happens, we are all the same.
Thank you, Uche. Kashindi, how does destigmatizing, like mental health issues look like for you in DRC? Given that even your government only supports, like two organizations, that is Sosame or something, Swan something, to work on mental health issues. How does it look for you, especially if you want to destigmatize mental health issues within the LGBTI community?
Thank you. First of all, I have to say mental issue and LGBTQ issues, they're all similar. People and the governments is similar that to taboo, something which is taboo, and something which one cannot be seen in local population. So we're trying to just do what we can in a way to just use our issues. So those issues, they're not more connected by the government. The government didn't allow that. So we don't have law on LGBT issues and on mental health issues. That means if there is a similar on mental issues and LGBT issues on taboo. So there is something like that goes in that way. Thank you very much.
We are also aware that a lot of people actually pass out, like being very okay. Sometimes these mental health issues don't actually, people don't express them like, we see them maybe, behaving weirdly. They're just normal every single day. We are with them in spaces, and they look very happy. But before we know it, the next day we hear that this person actually committed suicide, So sometimes I think also we need to also start doing enough education to ourselves to start accepting and knowing when to actually listen and kind of get to know how does mental health look like,
Vera, can I say something?
Yes, please go ahead, Chris.
Uh, for mental health, before we even start talking about policies, we first need to capacity build ourselves on what mental health really is, because many a times things happen around us, but we do not take note about them. And then you wake up and you hear so and so committed suicide, and you wonder what happened. It's because we do not recognize uh, our health mentally. We do not recognize that something is going wrong within ourselves. Then first we need to actually understand what happens in your mental state. We need to also capacity build LGBT organizations on how to marry advocacy works with mental health, because sincerely, we've been so much on the front line of ending discrimination, ending stigma, but have we looked at what all that does to a person? The person who faces discrimination every day, the person who faces stigma every day, have we stopped and checked at the individual person? So for stigma, it is within us, because anyway, you will go to the hospital and tell the doctor what is happening with you. First, they will put you under conversion therapy, you know? So that is where stigma starts from. Because I don't want to go there and someone starts telling me, the Bible says, when in real sense, I'm just struggling with my mental health. I do not want any other irrelevant information. Yeah.
Well, I'll just
Maybe
go
just,
to the comments.
but
Just sorry. Okay, go
yes,
Fahe.
sorry.
Go Fahe.
Yeah, I just like what Chris is speaking on. And actually, that is where the problem is. Most of the time, we do not understand what mental health is. And most of the time, in not understanding, is where we find that even, giving services or giving help to the next person is a problem. So I think there's a problem in terms of, even counseling. You find that even the people who are giving counseling services to even the LGBTQ community do not understand their issues. So you find that a person could be more like, we have the habit of saying people are attention seeking, while in real sense there's an underlying issue, and you can find that that is something even healthcare providers do. And I think it's so unfortunate, especially I have an experience of someone who, we referred to a counselor because they were trans and they were going through a lot of issues, the transition and stuff like that. So you find that when a counselor says that this person is living in an illusion, for instance, that they've created themselves and they do not want help, I fail to understand. Is it that maybe the therapist does not really understand the issues of the LGBTQ community, because in itself it's re-stigmatizing this person? Yeah, so I think I really concur with what Chris is saying, and I think we really need to look into having, and I think I have to add a bit of the solutions that I think you've asked about. What are the solutions to mental health? And I think for me, number one would be organized mental health literacy campaigns. And this campaign should aim to improve knowledge, attitudes, and help-seeking behaviors in the communities. The focus should be on how to encourage individuals, families, and even institutions to seek needed services. And ultimately, you will see a reduction in stigma that surrounds the mental health. Another thing, let's have linkages and referral pathways that really actually work, that are readily available, are accessible. And when you're talking about accessibility, I don't know, what about affordability? Because most of the time you're having toll-free lines that we refer to people, but you find that the services are not affordable. And genuinely, you cannot cancel a person for one day to solve, a 5-year problem. So I think we really need interventions that are practical, that are working for us.
Fahe, I think you've also just answered what Maxi Daniel on the comments chat said, that how much information is there for the public in matters mental health, like how much is actually there for even us, And Imelda Miere says, we need to move from what we think mental health is to what it really is to the queers and generally to everyone. And how do we perceive mental health disorders in our societies today? Anyango Dera also asks, what are you personally doing? Remember now, this is myself. What am I doing in building resilience around my own mental health? Zinedine Zidane. Mental health is a big issue, especially for LGBTQ. This is something I have decried over and over again. I agree with you, Zidane. It really is, Casera says COVID-19 made the effects of mental health even more severe. this is correct. And I think even in our government of Kenya, I think there was a task force that actually one of the recommendations was to declare mental health national pandemic. You know, it was that bad. Conchella says there is a big gap when it comes to addressing mental health because many feel discriminated. Wanjiru Mwarinda, mental health for the LGBTIQ is dangerously taking a dive down, especially since COVID-19. You know, Univa also says, how can the LGBTIQ persons get access to services regarding this? For example, attending therapy sessions without being discriminated or being uncomfortable. Kashindi, what are some of the services that, you know, like how do people get access to services in your area in DRC?
Yeah. So I just hear many comments from Zidane and others there. So your question is right. How people getting therapy on mental issues? So we just set up what we call hoping centers for trans people. That we call hoping centers for trans people. So that's centers. Those centers which we create, they are just for healing and for emotional support. So we have volunteering people who are just working on them, to just counseling people, give them advice, and coping with mental issues around. So when we coming from what Corona left and what Corona did, it was not easy. We just having to appeal for other resources, which one we keep for administration cost. Those resources was helping us. I can handle for that for now. Thank you.
Uche, are you with us? Well, Christovia,
Yes.
you know, like someone has asked, do we have LGBTI organizations offering mental health services around in Western Kenya? You know, like, do they exist?
You know, the problem is we have treated mental health as a sub-activity within a project, you know, and that now it's treated as something small. Currently, we know of Kisleb, who is offering psychosocial support for LBQ and transgender persons in Kisumu. We have Usawa Jamii, who was also offering psychosocial support for persons within Kakamega and outside Kakamega. And in future, we are looking at having our own peer educators on mental health issues, because again, there is nothing without us, you know. It cannot happen if it is not within our space. We are the ones who understand our own issues. Peer-to-peer counseling would do much for us, because when we talk about stigma and discrimination, I would not want to go to a therapist who will preach to me, but instead I would want to go to a therapist who understands what my issues are, who understands that they need to address my issues from my point of view, not their point of view, you know. So yes, currently we have organizations offering psychosocial support, but to me, I think mental health should be treated as a bigger issue, as we have treated advocacy for inclusion, for safe spaces also. Thank you.
Uche, do you have is mental health services accessible to the LGBTIQ persons in your country or in your area? Uche, you are on mute. Unmute yourself.
Do you say this by as in a social structure or an initiation from the LGBT community? Because I am asking this because I want to know, for the LGBT community, We have identified few people who can help talk to you when you're going through mental health issues and stuff like that. But it is not something they do for the living, and because they are counselors and they have their jobs, and so when the need is, when the time is, they can help you out. And as we well know, mental health issues sometimes need time. Yeah, you can't use, as Fahe said, you can't use few hours or even a day to say that you're going to get someone out of their depression or their anxiety. And so the systems there is not enough. The little the community can do is the much they are doing. They would have been better if we were broader, or we had a bigger initiation or something that can help with this issue. But as it stands now, we don't have any social structure there that people are using. It's just the LGBT community and some people who have their who have had the trainings and gone to the schools and stuff like that and have the experience are the ones that are doing the little they can do to help other people. For instance, when we came from when the whole people were arrested, the 21 people were arrested in Ho and they came back. It was some community members who have had experiences and stuff like that, who were talking and counseling these people for days, over 2 months, I think, before they could leave the safe house where they were and then go to their various homes. Those that were still left with homes, actually. So yes, the community, the LGBT community itself is helping, but we will need support. We will need support structures, policies, and all that in place to have a well-structured place or space or something that where people can go and get help from.
Well, I think one of the things that we also have to be alive to is the fact that some mental health disorders are actually clinical. You know, they need clinical interventions. For instance, if you're suffering from schizophrenia, for example, you would need, like medical intervention. So let's be alive to the fact that mental health issue is not only solved by having counseling sessions or therapy. It's a whole lot of things depending on the diagnosis, and that is why for me it's very important that even as we tackle mental health within organizations that are providing services, then we are able to have qualified personnel who can actually diagnose mental health disorders. Otherwise, we'll be treating the surface and not the root cause of a problem, right?
Yeah.
I'll just go back to the comments again. And Wanjiru asks, how can we access affordable mental health care services? Wanjiru, as we've heard, a lot of organizations are doing programs towards mental health. And as I heard, it only ends at the point where people are able to only seek, counseling sessions or counseling therapy sessions. So it still leaves a gap in when you want to access, for instance, clinical aspect of it. And even the psychiatric hospitals or the doctors or the mental health practitioners are aware of the issues that the LGBTIQ face, number one. And also, again, Univa asked the same thing. And Imelda, you asked, what is the current budget allocation for mental health? Where? For the government or the organizations? Because I think most organizations, like we've heard, a lot of programming has gone into therapy sessions, and I would really think that is very little budget allocation for that. So maybe we need to rethink the whole programming aspects on mental health. And then, oh, somebody says that you guys have gone to school. That's a nice word. Asuket says we need support for rural queer folks accessing mental health services. Atusawa Jamii organization is doing awesome for queer folks in the rural areas. Kids Lab is currently very accessible. Owino Pesh, queer persons are really going through mental health issues when it comes to matters SRHR, that is sexual reproductive health rights. For instance, I personally know people, LGBTQ plus couple, who got sent out of a health facility when they went for SRHR services, reason being they're gay. How are we gonna sensitize people and reduce such incidences, and making sure that the community have a right to access SRHR services at any time, anywhere? This again brings us back to programming, that even as we go to mental health facilities to do sensitization to healthcare workers, are we talking about mental health issues? Because you'll find even a service provider that has worked with LGBTIQ like for longest time, but you still find they'll do something that is discriminative, that actually then impacts the mental health of someone who's going to seek services negatively, and actually makes this person now start self-stigmatizing.
I
Maureen,
think,
yes, Uche. Anybody
yeah,
else can go.
I think as we are talking about mental health, and we have to also remember the, the religious part of the whole thing, because most of us Africans are religious people, and we have something that we believe that our parents, maybe if your parents are Catholics, there is a normal way of doing things. There is
Juju.
so I think
You
we should
have
also
Juju.
have a way of talking to our religious organizations, because it's so much, it's I don't know how you people see it, but it's very difficult to make someone think that they are okay whilst they think the whole world sees them as a problem. It's so much, and then this is something that they believe in, this is something that they can't do without. Now they are telling them that your lifestyle is the reason why the whole family is not getting money. All the opportunities going bad is because you are gay, and because you are this, and because you are that. And so this person every day wakes up on his bed broken. So if the people that they listen to, the religious leaders, are being talked to, if we can keep on identifying from the progressive faith leaders who we can talk to, who can some way somehow, chip in a bit of these things when they are doing their teachings, so that in a way they can start changing the mindset of the people. Because if we don't start it from there, I don't know how. Because no matter how long the session is, no matter how cheap the session becomes, the counseling session becomes, this person will still wake up in the morning, pray in the morning, remembering the pastor right from the bed, what the pastor told him on Sunday, what the mother is saying every day. And you see, so unless we get to let these people, we educate these people too. Because if we take them out of the equation, I don't think mental health is going to be an easy fight for the community.
I think even just right from the nuclear, like from our family itself, Uche, is that if you start exhibiting mental health disorders, the first thing they'll always tell you is that either you've been jujued, you've been jinxed,
Yeah.
like, someone is after our family, so they're using you as an example, and instead of actually going to the right places to seek help, actually we run to the religious people, who then do exorcism, like, the candles, and there's a
Yes,
church,
yes,
I think
yes,
they even
yes,
cane you, that the pastor was saying, I'm caning the devil out of this
yes,
person,
yes,
and
yes.
they're chained, they're in chains and etc. So really, religion also plays a very big role in the failure to actually build
Yes,
resilience around this, because
yes.
if they are our source
Because
of
people are people are going to people are going to spiritual places when they have health issues, all because they believe, or their pastor have told them that everything can be solved by God. And so people are dying every day. Every day they are dying because they think the solution is in the church, instead of, or the solution is there with their spiritual leader, instead of seeking the right channel. So as you are saying, we have to start education from our homes to our churches, to our communities, to our friends in schools and stuff like that. Like we really need to start the education from ourselves right now, till before we talk about funding, before we talk about putting policies and drawing lines and making it easier, and how we are going to do it and how we are going to program it and everything. Before we do all that, I think we really need to start from our religious homes, from our families, from our relatives who we think they might want to listen.
Yes. Mauricio, go back to the comments. Mauricio Ocheng says that, what about organizations? Are there organizations that actually offer mental health services to GBMSM within their area? And then KP says that transgender persons face a lot of stigma within the LGBTIQ plus community. Our own queer community stigmatize us so badly, to an extent that we cannot seek access to services in our health facilities. And this really affects our mental health. I want to agree with this because I know that a lot of trans people who actually go through hormonal, who are on hormonal therapy, or even just, the social, when you're still living socially as a trans person. And, we do not really understand the mood swings, they experience mood swings because of the discrimination they're facing daily to have to live their reality, and we are not helping. We are letting down the trans community in general, when we still also entrench the same thing we are running away from outside, to actually bring it back to a place where they should be safe, Yeah. Kashindi, you have something to say about this?
Yeah. Just read some comments and which one we highlight. What I can just say, I can just give an example. So I want to challenge people who just following us in the panelist with this question. So I want to give an example. A gay man is going into jail. In jail, he's starting having sex with others' friends in a prison matter in jail. So when he coming out from jail, he says you want to have sex with girls. So let me know, is it gender fluid who is a gay man? So I just want to know about that issues. If the panelists can just give me an idea of what I'm thinking about that I can just have more comments. Just people in comments can just see what's happening on mental issues. That I can just give an example about that. And another issue I can just highlight about the mental issues in Congo. So what I can say from years, we just look after LGBT people in Congo, especially trans people. Trans community, the problem of mental issues. When someone become having problem of mental issues, they're taking straight to church. Secondly, they send them to jail. So that means that person cannot get cured, cannot get support, because they rely on therapy, but they rely on something which can just be cured. Or the person is doing what he can do to be a person, to be free. That way I can just comment on that issues. So I just give the floor for you.
Maybe just to add.
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe just to say I'm about to leave. So I really wanted to speak on a comment that has been mentioned at the audience in regards to the LGBTQ community stigmatizing ourselves. Now, I want to bring to our attention, sorry, my camera is not on. I want to bring to our attention that while there's a lot of effort that has been put in empowering people to know about the LGBTIQ community, but very little has been put in empowering the LGBTIQ community itself. I don't expect a queer woman, a lesbian woman going for contraception to be bashed by sheer ignorance of promiscuity, for instance. An empowered lesbian or an empowered community will understand that there's so many dynamics. There's so many, reasons as to why people take contraception other than, prevention of pregnancy. I don't expect a community, the LGBTQ community, to laugh at a bisexual woman for coming out bisexual, for being bisexual, So I think there's little effort that has been put in empowering the LGBTQ community in itself, and that is really reflective in even in the SRHR space, for instance. We have very little information to speak on, the sexual and reproductive health needs of the LGBTQ community, specifically lesbians, bisexuals, and queer women. So I think ideally, like the other day, WHO released the guidelines on self-care interventions. If you look at the dynamic of the self-care interventions that they've released, much of it is on mental health, much of it is on self. And, at the heart of self-care is autonomy, choice, and control, and freedom. So with autonomy, I think there's an understanding that there's need to invest in health, mental health interventions. But the problem that has always been there is quantifying, because at the end of the day, it's all about business. Truth be spoken, it's all about business. So I wonder, are we really working towards, changing the community, or are we looking at the profits? Because if WHO in itself can release guidelines on self-care interventions, ideally, and they have been domesticated, they've been disseminated, we need to domesticate them, we need to adopt them. And with our facilities, with our organizations that we have, what do we have in self-care? Because I think even in the organizations that we have, even the advocates themselves, there's a lot of toxicity that is happening. There's a lot of workload. There's a lot of issues. That is in itself, there is mental health issues in themselves. So what are we doing in our capacities, in our organizations, as employees, as CEOs? What are we doing to make sure that we have an element of self-care? Because with self-care, automatically we are talking about autonomy, we are talking about freedom, we are talking about choice. Yeah. So for me, I'll just leave it at that. And I'm really emphasizing that there's need to advocate for more information when it comes to the LGBTQ community and when it comes to sexual and reproductive health and rights. And when you're talking about services, we're also talking about commodities. We cannot talk about services without commodities. We cannot talk about prevention without commodities. And I pose a question out there. What have we done in the aspect of commodities? Because we are always in meetings singing about commodities that are specific to the LGBTQ community. So I'll pose it right there to you all, that there's need for us to be realistic with our advocacy and to essentially put the heart of the community at heart. And that is the change we need. Yeah, thank you so much. And I beg to leave the conversation. And thank you to the audience and to the panelists and the hosts. And I'm really thrilled. And I've learned a lot. And I'm yet to learn a lot from you guys. Back to you.
Thank you, Fahe. We are going to miss your very big brain. Umeambiwa umepiga kitabu sana. So I agree with you, because matters sexual reproductive health, even when it comes to cancer screening, for the LBQ women, especially those who identify as lesbians, there's a lot of discrimination if you go for cancer screening and then maybe you have cervical cancer. Why? Because it is then equated to you having slept with men to actually get, the HPV virus and etc. So a lot of education needs to be done. And there's some tasking programmers to actually look into how this can lead to destigmatizing, we need to destigmatize the myths around what causes mental health. KP says for us to kill stigma in the LGBTIQ community, we have to kill the stigma itself within ourselves first. Let's educate ourselves, people. The other day, someone was just asking in some group I was in that sometimes I feel lonely, that sometimes they feel lonely. And somebody tells them, like, go and hang out with people. I mean, the kind of loneliness this person is feeling. And this person, like, could even go ahead and say, yes, I can hang out with people, but I still feel lonely. Like, how much are we educated about certain these kind of things, because this clearly points to something. Loneliness is one of the things you actually, when you are having chronic loneliness, you start thinking mental health. And then somebody says also affordable and friendly counseling services is also another way of building resilience. Acceptance is key. Let us accept that, yes, anyone can suffer mental health, issues at any one point. Uche, today you may be very good, but tomorrow Uche is not us, is not Uche again. We're not gonna blame you that maybe, because, I don't know what happened, we have to accept that this can happen to any person. Someone also says the community should try doing something for themselves and not waiting for someone to come and tell us what to do. This is our life. Let's embrace. So we truly are, and be bold about it. I agree. We need to start entrenching mental health programming and mainstreaming it in all programs, even just normal organizational, like policies. Let's have mental health policies, that actually allow people to take mental health breaks, allow people to be human. You don't expect someone to be having issues. This person was maybe chased out of their homes because of several reasons. This person is having different issues, and we're not giving it a human face. And this person goes into mental health issues, and we are laying off this person, saying this person is not even productive, etc. And then Asu said, I think, Asu, we've tackled this. My problem is that you're defining mental health issues with an expression of someone being abrasive, too expressive, or by their behavior. We forget that others might be having mental health problems, or breakdowns, yet still look like they're holding it on. Very true, Asu. Queer folks, a lot of them go through a lot, from wanting to be accepted for who they are and journey through all phases of life. We cannot debunk this just to stigma. Yes, true, Sue. So, Winnie Maduro, you asking how do we build resilience? Really, our culture is set such that gaining courage to be different, even in our normal state, is tricky. Winnie Maduro, I hope that the panelists and the comments on the chat section are helping a bit. And also, I see. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. There's also the fact that we are assuming that everyone else can actually afford mental health care services. Chris,
Yes.
Typical, because I know your organization is purely mental health, that is your backbone. How much do you equate, or how can you, like, give us like an overview what mental health care looks like in terms of budget or even resources? Just a brief, overview of what is needed, etc.
Uh, First, to give a budget tag to it is very hard because again, when you're planning with donor money, you have to squeeze in. But if you're going to the counselor professionally, they will tell you a therapist session which lasts for an hour is going to cost you 5,000 Kenya shillings. Imagine that is just 1 hour.
So if you
Yeah.
need, like let's say, for example, you have like 27 hours, that's 5,000 times 27. Oh God.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that is also going to be a problem because it is not affordable. Bearing in mind that the LGBT community are really struggling when it comes to economic muscles. Yeah, the struggle with money in our pockets, the struggle with getting jobs. And now you have to try and look for a therapist who is going to charge you 5,000. So accessing these services, it is expensive. And the programs that we have, they are designed in a way that it is accommodating. But again, also you have to lobby a lot. You have to lobby a lot with these providers, with these therapists. You have to really play with you should be human, you should, you have to
Yes,
lobby
I
a lot
can see
with them.
someone has said like 90% of Kenyan therapists are not ethical, They're not
Yes,
ethical at all.
yes.
Yeah.
So, you have to really find someone who has that instinct of humanity within them. Because first, it is mental health programming is underfunded. Uh, it is expensive, and there is no donor who will give you money to do mental health 360. They will fund half of it, and then they will tax you on looking for the rest from other donors. So as it is right now, we are struggling with funding for mental health. It is something that we need to really, really work towards. Thank
And
you.
I know a lot of donors really want to just fund, like retreats. I
Yes,
don't know, hikes. I don't know,
yes,
team building or sessions. I
and
think
that is
maybe it's high time we started tasking them to do a 360 funding around mental health, just like with HIV/AIDS, the way they've done 360 funding around it in terms of behavior, in
yes,
terms of yes. So yeah,
and that is why I keep saying that we have treated mental health as a sub activity to an entire project. And it is time we moved away from treating it as a sub activity. It is time we looked at it 360, the way HIV programming has been looked at. That is the way the mental health journey should also be looked at. Yeah.
because we're talking 360, we're looking at behavior, the treatment,
Yes.
the post
Yes.
treatment, and
Yes.
yeah. So I think
We
that
are
is
also
that
looking
I
at
agree with you.
advocacy. We are also looking at advocacy for inclusive policies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Kashin, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I have something to say, but I'm wondering if my friend in Ghana can hear. As I wanna speak up in Swahili. We grew up in French language country, so my English is terrible. I already understand that. So maybe I can just try to speak in Swahili. Can someone translate for me? So maybe you can
Okay.
just allow for that.
Okay. Uche, is that fine
Yeah,
with
because
you?
mm, so as we are French speakers, so my French is quite well than English, I think, and my French is very very fluent as than English. What I can add for
Go ahead.
let me go in Swahili. Nitafuta ongea juu ya kusema kama
Yeah, I'm listening. I'm
mental
looking
health.
for.
Can I go to Swahili or French or English?
Yeah.
Go Kiswahili, it's fine.
Go Swahili is fine. Okay. Nitafuta ongea kwamba mental health iko na problem Mkongo kwa sababu tuko na shida sana ya kupata gisi ya kusaidia watu ku mental health. Mnajua kama Kongo ina shida siku nyingi sana, hakukuwa kunapatikana funds Mkongo kwa kusaidia mental health. Wakati wakoloni waliacha Kongo, system ya sante system ya health ikaanguka chini. Sasa kwa sababu leo tunawakia tu maonje kwa kusaidia system ya sante Mkongo, organization yetu inasaidia wa LGBTQ. Kazi yake ni kusaidia wa LGBTQ kufanya kazi ya musante, kazi ya akili ya kusaidia mental health, na kazi ya kusaidia tabu isikue kungambo yao. Sasa kwa ile kazi tunafanya kwa ile community yetu, ile kazi inakuwa kwa nguvu kwa sababu gouvernement hai allow ile kazi. haitupatie nafasi ya kufanya ile kazi. Tunaifanya kwa kujisaidia sisi wenyewe, kwa sababu community yetu iko na shida sana na sida na mental health. Kama unaona mtu iko na mental health mu Kongo, wanambeba kwa hospitali ama pastors wanamkamata wanaenda kwa kamuombea. Sasa ile inakuwa shida sana kwa watu wa community LGBTQ. Tunaweza ongeza, kuna persecution kwa watu wa LGBTQ mu Kongo. Ile persecution iko kwa sababu wa politiki wanaitumikisha sana kwa kukamata power. Watu wa leadership ya maeglise inatumikisha sana kwa kusaidia watu wa fellow wao wawafate mzuri. Wanasema kama tunaribisha kitu yenye Mungu alisema. Mungu alisema kama tunapaswa kuwa heterogene, lakini sisi tunashanze, tunaleta ile vitu kichwa yetu itumike vizuri, na ile nyende zaongeza mkiswahili. So I'm sorry for my friend in Ghana, so maybe someone can help to translate that. Thank you very much.
No, I've already translated. Uche, you can check in the chats. I've already translated for you. It was just Kashindi was talking about the kind of discrimination that the government carries out on LGBTIQ persons in their area. And since COVID happened, mental health has been an issue. HIV is also a very big issue for them in Congo. And so most of the politicians use the LGBTIQ agenda negatively to, discriminate them and get to power, because that is what they say, that, they're supposed to be heterosexuals. They're spoiling what God actually made to be. Yeah. So I'll go back to the chats because we're almost winding up. I just want to engage to read what our audience have written. Sometimes suicidal people don't want to die. They just want the pain to go away. Let's talk to our friends and the people surrounding us without weighing their issues with ours. There's normally this issue that when you go to a friend to talk about your issues, even them, they're like, yeah, even me, I went through this, but you see, I was very strong. Each and every person is very different. And Mary Lee says there's no class of psychology where you're told to go, where you're told to tell people to pray. Uche, back the way you were saying about religion, and Mary Lee still goes on to say therapy is a lifetime journey that is very expensive. I really like the way people, like the community is aware of how we are supposed to be building resilience, like what do we want for ourselves, so how then moving forward do we ask ourselves, we know that the most requested services, that is counseling and mental health services, they normally speak to the need, they speak to the need to develop sensitive and specific venues for the provision of these services for the members of the community, as well as to integrate mental health services into existing programs and services, But who is doing something better on mental health? If you look around, who is doing what, and what can we take home, to help us, build resilience? Who is making the greatest advancements in addressing mental health? What is it that they're doing? Can it be copied? Uche, over to you. Uche. Okay, as Uche comes, Cristovio, are you on?
I'm here.
Go ahead. You could answer.
Pardon?
I asked a question like, who is making the greatest advancements in addressing mental health? Are we, is there someone or people or a certain population, and what is it that they're doing, and can it be copied? Can we copy what they're doing so that we are also able to address the issue of mental health within the LGBTIQ community?
I am meant to understand that the trans community have a very good mental health structure that I would say that is actually working. And also the GBMSM community, I understand that they're supported with the government of Kenya. The mental health program is supported with the government of Kenya. And I always say that I'm very envious of them. And I would really want to learn what is working for them that we can adopt as the LBQ GNC community, and also what is working for the transgender persons that we can also adopt as the LBQ and GNC community. Thank you.
Kashindi, is there a group of people or a population that has set out very good strategies for building resilience around mental health that we can copy as the LGBTIQ community in your area?
Yeah. Thank you. There's some ideas who's coming from Kinshasa, which is our capital. Those ideas they're coming from how to create a committee, which one we have only a month of work. We can just work once a month, so we can just highlight the situation which one we are facing on ground. And that could be something which we can just give back to community. That I think we are doing for now. That we can cope for that is like we are just creating a structure, a group of WhatsApp, which one we communicate together or what's happening, and we're trying to see how we can communicate in a way to overcome mental illness issues. That's what we're doing in Congo.
I know that the government of Kenya has now made it like a bit mandatory that mental health is mainstreamed in all the departments of government offices or government institutions. And I see Mauricio is also saying the same thing. Ocheng is saying that we should include mental health in all our programs whenever we are resource mobilizing. And again, I want to emphasize the fact that it is not just about mental health being psychosocial support. Let's look at it 360. How are we preventing? Look at the prevention, look at the treatment, look at, the clinical part of it, even post social mental health issues. For instance, if you were taken into maybe a psychiatric hospital, how are you then integrated back to the community without people always looking at you like, oh, that person is going to have a mental breakdown anytime, or PT or etc, something of that sort. So, Uche, do you have in your country a group of people or organizations? Yes, I can hear you. Do you have a group of people, organizations that are doing something better to address mental health? And can this be replicated for the LGBTIQ community in your country? Uche, we can't hear you.
For the bigger picture, you can hear me?
We can hear you now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you, Uche.
Hello? I'm saying as for the bigger picture, any organization that is doing well or when it comes to mental health, I think outside the LGBT community, I think they have a way of calling them. I don't want to mismention it. The disabled or physically challenged people have been doing a lot when it comes to getting their mental health in the right but what I have learned from and what I the other organizations or other communities can learn from is the fact that you don't get in the midst. I've been in meetings with them. You don't get in the midst of physically challenged people or like in their meetings, and then one will see him or herself better than the other. Unlike our community is going through the process of getting to where they want to get to, it becomes a problem for the community to accept them for who they are. The other way around, I said, we can adapt that because I've seen that work for
I seem to have lost Uche. Any other person who can hear Uche?
We have lost him.
Okay. Kashinde.
I can hear you very well.
Okay. You already talked about, somebody has just said here that, sometimes, with discrimination, sometimes it comes from an individual level, An organization might have policies, a country can have the laws, but that won't stop individuals working in these places, offering essential services from discriminating. Again, I come back. You said your organization offers services, on mental health, How are you dealing with issues of maybe discrimination, especially for people who do not understand what dysphoria is for trans persons, How do you then handle that when they come for, yes, in your space?
As I can say, discrimination is all over, and we in between LGBT communities around countries in Congo, especially in Congo, as you know, it's a taboo.
Did I lose Kashindi?
It's like you lost Kashindi too.
Okay, I'll just go to answer AAA. Dysphoria is just a state where trans people especially experience, like distress, discomfort, or unease that is associated with their gender, their bodies, and how those around them perceive their gender. So it's called like gender dysphoria, right? And yes, it leads to a lot of mental health issues for the trans persons because it is something that they experience it inside and outside where they are at. Kashindi, are you back? You want to continue?
You can hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. What I'm trying to say is just what I was saying before. Discrimination is around any organization and around the countries. So we have policies around, and we talk about individual persons. We tell them how can they deal with the trans communities, how they can deal with people who have a different gender for them. So I think we just having volunteers, they are well prepared for that. That I can just put on site as we just having our work on that way. We don't have too much discrimination or harassment. As all of us, we know what we are doing, and we are almost of LGBT person in our group. Thank you.
Vera, we can't hear you.
I also think that allies can also play a very critical role in joining the LGBTIQ activists in fighting for equal rights, and protection under the law, such that having inclusive health policies at all levels. We need our allies to also come out to protect us, such that we are kind of decreasing the discrimination space, to also enable us start coping. If it's too big a space, then it becomes hard for us to even maneuver. Christovia.
Yes.
What would be your parting shots?
My parting shot is that we have started this conversation around mental health. It means we have started a journey. It means we have made a step. So it is upon us, the LGBT community, to continue making these steps until we reach a point where mental health is a subject that is continuously spoken about. Mental health is something that is continuously intervened, And also, it's okay. It's okay to accept that you're struggling. It's okay. You might not see it today. You might see it a year later, but it's okay to accept that you're struggling. We live in a society where we are always beaten down from family, friends, just people around you. Every corner you go, you're facing a struggle, and it's okay. Thank you.
Uche, what would be your parting shot, your words of wisdom to the great audience?
Mine, what I would have to tell everybody is that as a community, we should be there for one another. We should just be there for each other if you want us to grow. The kind of freedom that you want cannot happen with only you. You need other people. So if you have a friend going through health crisis when it comes to whether it's mental health or HIV or any other thing, we have to be there for everyone. We have to be there for all of us so that we can fight this through. And it's okay to be broken. It's okay this is life. You wouldn't know what will happen tomorrow. So it is okay when you are going through something. The next person might laugh at you, but just know that it is okay. It's just human for those things to happen. And it's also good to seek for help, to try and talk to someone, because it's not going to be like this forever. It's never going to be like this forever. There is always going to be a soothing point. There is always going to be a point where you can breathe through one way or the other. So I'm just saying this as a community, as a community as a whole, we all have to keep our hopes high, hold our hands together, and then strive through, and we'll make it. Thank you.
Thank you. Kashindi.
Yeah, thank you. I can just handle it in Swahili, so you can just help Ocha in English. That would be very good. That's you done early.
Okay. Okay.
Ndasema hivi, Mkongo tunaweza tukapiga chakula, mtu wa Kenya anakula. Mtu wa Kenya anaweza kapiga chakula, mtu wa Kongo anakula. Mtu wa Ghana anaweza kapiga chakula, mtu wa Kongo anakula na mtu wa Kenya anakula. Sasa kwa leo, kama mwenzako yuko tofauti, usikamchukie, umpende kama ni mwingine. Mtu anaanguka kwa sababu tulianguka wa mingi kwa corona. Corona ilituma tunaanguka wa mingi mentally, na ilikuwa shida sana. Mental health na sante inakuwa shida kwa sababu inakuwa ni situation inatumaka situation inafanya mtu vile. Napenda tupendane shi wote, community nyeko Kenya, community ko Ghana, tupendane sisi wote, itakuwa mzuri kusaidia. Na kama tunaweza endelea tunakuwa tunaongea hivi, inaweza kuwa nasaidia wa activist wa Kongo wanafanya kazi Kongo, wanaongea na watu wa Kenya, na watu wa Kenya wanaongea na watu wa Kongo vile vile. Chakula moja tunakula sisi wote. Asante.
Uche, Kashindi is saying that when, like someone in Kenya, it's a saying that when you cook food in Kenya, someone in Ghana can eat. You cook food in Ghana, someone in Kenya can eat or in DRC can eat. And that means that we need one another. So when one is down today, kindly do not leave someone down, but work with this person, because mental health has its own challenges and it makes people behave in ways that we do not understand. And Kashindi is calling out for more forums like this, such that activists are actually able to speak, learn from one another, especially for them in Congo. Yes. Yeah, that was that.
I would also say the same thing. I think we would need more of this, because it's like mental health is issue. Everybody is scared of it, but nobody wants to talk about it. So we need more of this, and it will help all of us.
And also, Vera,
yes,
I think it is time for the SOGI activists to actually accept that this work is mentally draining. This work brings you down. You absorb all the negativity within you. And that is why you hear, oh, someone is struggling with alcohol. It's because they're trying to live inside this space, and also they're trying to work within themselves. So it's okay for activists to actually take a rest. It's okay. Thank you.
I agree. I totally agree. Back to my audience. Mary Lee says it's too much to expect someone who is going through so much abuse to teach their abusers. You know, it's like telling someone holding a gun in your head not to shoot you. Conchella says the government will never help us. We have to find a way to sort this out. Otherwise, we are all going to suffer, you know. Wanjiru, most religious leaders take advantage of parts of the scriptures to, you know, like discriminate and stigmatize. Anyango Odera says, how about identifying a person or persons queer who have gone ahead of you as a source of motivation, you know? This is one of the strategies that is also very good. That's a good way of building resilience, you know? It might not be a fast fix, but one step at a time, you know? Someone says the Sirkal's idea is indeed defeatist mentality. And if we are to be champions in mental health, we really need to move away from what the government is doing to actually start having solutions for ourselves by ourselves, you know. Yeah, I totally agree with Uche. We need a diverse awareness that cuts across. We also need to start with people who first think of disowning their loved ones for being trans, you know. I remember the mornings I woke up thanking the Lord for letting me see another day, yet ready to write my suicide note because the pain was unbearable. It ripped my heart apart. Hugs, Owino. Owino Pesh, hugs to you. Kasera says starting mental health support groups for queer persons is also very key. You know, we need to identify. And yes, I will agree with this point. And that is why I said in mental health programming, let us have a 360 such that we are able to diagnose. You'll not put someone who has schizophrenia or who has bipolar with somebody who is going through depression or something of that sort, you know. It becomes difficult to even have a support group. That's why we need diagnosis, you know, professional and proper diagnosis for this, you know. And then how about involving the policy makers? That is KP. KP has said that. What kind of question is that? Does it even matter why and who people are having sex with? I think Mary Liz was responding to someone. Have you ever thought, or are there any organizations in existence that talk about sexual orientation and gender identity in mental health? You know, hashtag Women's History Month, hashtag trans women and women, you know. Sante Kwach Rading also says that, is it possible, for example, to identify political allies who can fast track policies that are friendly to queer citizens in terms of accessing SRHR services and mental health well-being? Yes. Someone asked how affordable is the cost of treating mental health illnesses. Maduro, we had a breakdown a bit from Christovia, who said actually it is really expensive, you know, because if you were to pay for sessions, the therapy sessions, and one session goes for $50, and you have like 27 or even just 24 or even 10 sessions to go, depending on the degree or the depth of your problem, then the mental health issue you have, or if it is clinical and you have to be maybe, you know, go through clinical treatment, then of course it is very someone says again, thank you so much, I've learned a lot. Support groups for the queer is very key. On Manta's mental health, is sleep paralysis associated with mental illness? Sleep paralysis, I really don't think so, but it is a phenomenon that actually happens once in a while. Breaking the societal wall around needs support and courage. Someone also says, can we ask the various aspirants in Kenya, for example, now that they are seeking to represent us, to elaborate how they are going to tackle the various challenges facing LGBTIQ communities and programming? Asante kwa Shrading. Yesterday I was in a session and actually someone said, one of the aspirants said they would wish to change the lifestyles of LGBTIQ persons because they do not support homosexuality. So we're just around, you know, back and around, yes. And although, yes, there are leaders who are coming out to support the LGBTIQ. And then KP says, political allies, you know, again, political allies. But we also need to ask them for this one. They need to be more sensitized on matters LGBT, and they need to clearly tell us what they will do. Oh, that's political. Someone says actually that therapy in Kenya is so expensive. Imagine paying like $45 per hour, you know? Yeah, so Paul says if we continue having such like forums, then through experience sharing and getting more information from the professionals, we can be able to handle some of the cases and also help out fellows who are having such like problems. I think the next mental health or Kikau Junction should have like a professional who is able to then take us through the different types of mental disorders. This is the only way when we're educated about the mental health disorders. Are we then able to, as programmers, program perfectly around mental health? Otherwise, we'll just be fetching, you know, reading from books and etc. We need like, you know, like first-hand information, a professional who can actually answer certain things like, you know, like that question on sleep paralysis, you know, etc. And then so alarming how LGBTIQ community is placed under the marginalized communities. In some countries, only 2 genders are identified, forgetting that gender non-conforming individuals are also in the picture. This is now part of advocacy that can be done. This is arguably one of a kind conversation. This space needs to reach out to very many folks. I agree. Well, any other panelists who feels there's a question we didn't ask or any part of the topic we've not talked about and you actually think it's very important, or something you've read in the chats that you'd want to respond to, or even just have a comment about? Uche, any thoughts? Yes, Christovia.
I will still insist on donors supporting mental health. I will still insist, because then how are we then advocating for accommodative spaces for LGBT persons if they are not in a right mental state? Then how are we advocating for friendlier health service seeking behaviors if LGBT persons are not in the right state of mind? So I'm still insisting on, if donors can really support mental health, then it will mean the journey will be easier with them.
Christovia, we all know that in the donor world, it's all about numbers, data. First of all, we also have to look at data. Are we posting data, you know, like for organizations? Do we have consolidated data on on the rate of the mental health? Do we have research done, even if we are tasking donors? Do we have research done that shows that this percentage of people, etc.? Because some of these donors,
Yes.
they don't even understand. They won't
Yes, we
understand. So
have.
let us implement the researches. The problem is that we do the researches, we keep them in the shelves, share with the donor that funded the research, and that is the end of it, So for
There
me,
is
it's about activating.
there is a research that was done with the University of Michigan in 2020. I think it was published in 2021, and it is a good research. And we are sharing with potential funders to help us implement its recommendations. Yeah.
I think I second her when it comes to the refunding, donors funding mental health issues. It's like you don't know whether it's not a. I started asking myself, is this not a problem? Is it something that we're making it look as if it is not? Because if you think about it, I don't know, maybe I sound so, but if you think about it, it's scary. This is very scary. This is very worrying. But then it's like, as you said, in Ghana here, I don't know, but I know that if there should be, we would there will be a data for them. Um, there is actually a data for them. It's just that it's like donors don't want to talk about it, and it's like donors are either talking about security or health, and it's like it's becoming the order of the day. It's becoming the route where everybody, if you're not going to use developmental environmental development or health or security when it comes to the LGBT community, there is nothing nobody wants to hear, and we really need to change that, because it's like you keep on saying that I'm empowering organizations, I'm building their capacity, and you're not talking about their mental health. How are they going to work? How is it going to be? It's like people broken get up in the morning trying to help other people get on their feet. How is that going to be possible? So I think we really need to shout it loud and make the ink thicker for everyone that is supposed to know that it is something that we've gotten to the apex now, and we need to start attacking it 360, as you said.
Ashindi, anything from the comments?
I will add in Swahili, so for more people to just listening what I'm saying, because I'll talk about Kenya as well in Congo. Nataka sema juu ya gisi anasema juu ya kupata funds ku mental health. Nawaza muko na wa refugee wanyeko kukakuma camp. Wale wa refugees wanatulomba msaada na siwe tuko Congo kwa sababu iko na shida ya mental health. Hakuna msaada kwa mental health sana. Na anasema natafuta uliko wanatia comments ni nguvu kupata msaada kama unaleta story ya mental health kwa donors. Donors haweza kukupa franga mbio mbio. Donors anakupatia franga kwa sababu ya persecution ya LGBTQ na kupatia franga kwa sante ya donc health ya LGBTQ, lakini kwa kutosha hela kwa mental health iko na kuwa nguvu sana. Ndio nitafuta ongeza kwa ile swali ya found juu ya mental health, hakuna, iko nguvu kupata kabisa. Asante.
Uche Kashindi says that the refugees even living in Kenya, in Kakuma, the camps, the refugee camps, are also still asking them, those who are in Congo, for help around mental health, like it's like it doesn't exist, the programs do not exist in the refugee camps, and even for them who are back in Congo, it is practically very hard for them to get funding around mental health. So I think we are all saying that with one voice, that mental health funding or the resources are scarce. It needs, because if you're talking about security, security will then mean that we're looking at people who've been abused, people who've been harassed, people who've been discriminated, you understand? And all this boils down again to mental health. So even as we do the security mechanisms, what do we have in place for mental health? Even just ahead, like right now, Kenya is going into the electioneering period. A lot of security, mechanisms being put in place. What about the mental health? Because as we go, we are already anticipating, we are anxious, we are suffering anxiety attacks. We are always just looking over our backs, like who said what politician said what, you understand? So it's causing us a lot of stress. Is there a program? Are there initiatives? Are there processes that are put in place for us to even start talking mental health or taking care of our mental health before we even reach the elections?
Yes.
Because during the electioneering period, it's a whole different lot of things. Are we prepared mentally? And even after, are we prepared to actually now work? Because we are not sure what is gonna happen. Are we going to go into, is it going to be peaceful? Is it going to be chaotic? Then, you understand. So all this needs to be integrated again in all programming. So in as much as donors want to fund security, in as much as they want to fund sexual reproductive health, they want to fund human rights, they want to fund sensitization, we are all saying mental health has become a pandemic that we need to deal with. And we have the solutions. And we are praying to everyone to kindly listen to how organizations, communities are able to give solutions on how to cope. Because what you're doing in Ghana could not work for us here in Kenya, or what is happening in DRC could not work for people in Ghana, right? So I beg to actually say thank you very much to all our listeners. Oh, Chris, you have something?
Yes, I have something to add.
I know this is your field. Flex. Flex.
The kind of programming we have as the LGBT community always looks at the external factors, external effects of stigma, discrimination in nini. But we are always avoiding the internal effects of these things that are happening. And that is why when you're speaking about security, we're just looking at relocation. When we're talking about security, we're just looking at so and so number of people were beaten, But when we are talking about data in mental health, it could be as simple as how many people seeked psychosocial support, how many people seeked addiction counseling. That is the way we compile the data. Slowly but clearly, we are having the data that will eventually feed up into the general mental health programming that we want to have. Asante.
Sure. Can I say something?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, and also I think organizations like ourselves, we should start doing our work, as in start gathering the information, gathering the data, the little data we can get, and also, if possible, start working together. Because if we can bring concepts and ideas together, which can help us get funding, or which can help us get a project where we can both be doing and be helping the community, I think it's also going to be good. But as we are shouting, as we are saying, as we are wailing, if it comes now and some organizations are not prepared to give the required information to get the job done, that is also going to be like we are not ready, but we are just saying. So as it stands now, maybe from now going, we should all think about something, a concept or something, an idea, just as Fahe was saying, a campaign or something that we can use as a starting point to gather the information, to gather the data, to start working, to start doing something, and then maybe we can do it. Maybe you're doing it in Kenya only. It's you're not getting funds, or it's not working for you. Probably you can look for an exchange program, come for another country and see how they are also doing it. If it's working, or probably you can add up something and then use it in your country. So I think in as much as we are wailing and calling for the right thing to be done, we also start to need to be doing our homework well.
Thank you very much. I wish to take a leave now, and I invite Steve. Steve, before you come in, let me just read a bit of the comments. Someone says, I've learned a lot, felt loved, felt empowered. Thank you for such a platform. Good work, Talanta Africa. More organizations, more activists, more projects, amazing discussions. I have learned a lot. Yes. Back to you, Steve.
Thank you very much, Vera. Wow, what a powerful way to end this conversation. Super, super, super. And of course, it was an interesting conversation because matters that relate to mental health are very emotive. And of course, when we start up these conversations, we've seen how the online participants have expressively brought up their issues. Of course, this was also therapy in its own sense, because therapy starts by talking. Yeah, it starts by talking, and of course, it was interesting to see quite amazing input from our participants, and of course, from the amazing panelists that we've had today. Thank you so much. Mine is just to appreciate you, and of course, to appreciate our online participants. Please, let's keep the conversation going. Mental health we cannot kind of finish the mental health conversation with one setting. We need more settings, and of course, I've also seen in the conversation in the chat, our participants are talking about even having more of these conversations, and of course, we've taken note of that. As I said before, this conversation has been enabled by the kind support from Forum CIV, Eastern and Southern Africa, and of course, we as Talanta Africa, we are the conveners, the enablers of this process, and of course, we've personally equally learned a lot. There are things that I've known today, and I never knew, but learning keeps on taking place every day. For purposes of continued information about forthcoming conversations, I want to invite our participants and also our panelists to our socials. For example, if you want to keep posted to be posted about the coming conversations, kindly you can visit Forum CIV social medias, the Facebook, the Twitter, and also even their website. You'll know which conversations are coming up. You can also visit the Talanta Africa socials, Facebook, Twitter, and also website. You'll get to learn about the forthcoming conversation that we are curating for you and with you. And yes, I want to end it at that point, and I want to invite all our participants to an amazing post-conversation discussions. Of course, this is still going to be on the website. I mean, on the YouTube and also on Facebook at Forum CIV, Eastern and Southern Africa. So you can always keep going there to kind of just refresh yourself with the discussions we've had. It's been an amazing time. It's been an amazing audience. It's been an amazing panel. I say thank you, and let's keep the conversation going. Bye.
Bye.